Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our series of lessons on the Anglo-Saxons. And we've made it all the way up to 1066. So, our lesson today, who wanted the English throne in 1066? So, remember, England is a really rich country, lots of fertile soil, great trade links. It's the country that everyone wants to be king of. In particular, we're going to see three of the greatest fighters in Europe are going to come to England 1066 and they're going to fight it out head to head for who is going to be king. So we're going to start off with a quick recap on what we have done before. So, question number one. What happened to Tostig Godwinson in 1065? So think to yourself, who was Tostig Godwinson? What happened to him in 1065? Number two, what did the Saxons say Harold had gone to deal with in Normandy in 1064? So we know Harold goes to Normandy in 1064. The Normans say one version of why. What's the Saxon version of the story? Number three, who did Harold Godwinson marry? So he does it to secure land and support from her two brothers. So who does Harold Godwinson marry? Number four, and I think this is quite a hard one. What was a tithing? So you're in Anglo-Saxon England, you come across a tithing. What is it? Number five, who decided who would be the next king under Saxon customs and traditions? So pause the video if you want a bit more time to answer those questions, then we'll go through them. Okay, so first up, what happened to Tostig Godwinson in 1065? He gets exiled. Remember, he's the brother of Harold Godwinson. He's Earl of Northumbria. He's doing a dreadful job of it. Think murder and blackmail. So the people of Northumbria have an uprising. He goes to Edward the Confessor for help. Edward at first is willing to help him, but Harold Godwinson steps in and is like, don't help my brother, send him into exile. So Tostig Godwinson is going to make appearance again in this lesson. What did the Saxons say Harold gone to deal with? He was going to get hostages, is the Saxon version of events. Nothing to do with who was going to be the next king, just picking up some hostages. Number three, who did Harold marry? So he marries Edith of Mercia, not to be confused with Harold's sister, Queen Edith, two different Ediths. So his sister Edith is Queen of England. He marries Edith of Mercia to secure support from the Mercians. So her brother is Earl of Mercia. Number four, what was a tithing? It was a group of 10 households. And number five, who decided who would be the next king under Saxon customs and traditions? It was the Witan. More on those in the second, but the Witan is the King's Council. So leading earls, leading churchmen, people who could advise the king. So just a reminder of where we are with Edward the Confessor. He's married Edith Godwin in 1045. So she is sister to Harold Godwinson, Tostig Godwinson. They've got married in 1045, but in those 21 years, they haven't had any children. And when he dies in 1066, it has been obvious for a while that they are not going to be having children. So everyone kind of knows the throne is going to be up for grabs. So 5th of January 1066 is the day that King Edward dies. And we can see him in the picture there. So he's lying in bed, gesturing at his churchmen. The woman crying by his pillow is Queen Edith. And the man at the foot of the bed with his face in his cloak, that's Harold Godwinson. So they're all surrounding Edward the Confessor as he dies, very start of 1066. And Edward says to Harold, I commend this woman, Edith, with all the kingdom to your protection. Now, we know this happened because it actually appears in the Bayeux Tapestry, which is the Norman version of events, but there's some debate about what he is actually saying. So some people say he's just like, look after your sister. Look after your sister, make sure England's okay when I'm gone. Howard Godwinson takes that to mean you're the next king. I give you the kingdom and your sister to protect. So poor old Edward the Confessor dies. On the 6th of January, the Witan elected Harold Godwinson as king. So the Witan get to pick the next king. It's what they say that matters. They pick Harold Godwinson. Eagle-eyed amongst you will have noticed the date. That is super quick. So 5th of January, poor old King Edward dies. 6th of January, they've picked Harold Godwinson as king. That is a very quick turnaround. So possibly it's because the Witan are there. So we can see it's the 5th of January. They've all gathered in London for Christmas to celebrate Christmas at court. So it's possible that it's just practical. They're like, well, look, we're all here right now. Shall we just sort it out rather than come back later? Also, though, likely that they knew that this wasn't going to be smooth, that there were possible invasions coming, in particular from Normandy. So they want it as like a done deal. They want to get it done quickly. So Howard Godwinson's as king, sitting on the throne. So let's have a little look at how you become King of England in the 11th century. And it's not straightforward. So it's not like today where the oldest child of the monarch is next in line to the throne. So we all know that when King Charles dies, the next king will be William. After William, it will be George. It's all straightforward. Saxons, not so much. So if you are the oldest son of the king, that gives you quite a nice claim, but it won't guarantee you anything. So you could be acceptable for lots of different reasons. Blood relative of the old king, they very much like that. You've been chosen by the previous king, so the previous king has announced you as his choice. The Witan tend to listen to that. Or the English nobles, the Witan accept you. They think you are going to make a good king. That's all you need. So the Witan picks the king. Who they say goes. So some or all of these things could make you acceptable to the king's council. So if the king has an eldest son, brilliant at fighting, really clever, the Witan think he's going to do a good job, he's a shoo-in. In this case, it's very much up for grabs. It's not certain who the Witan are going to choose. So part of the course, you need to know the four people who were the contenders to the throne, the claimants to the throne, they wanted to be the king. So let's have a look more at Harold Godwinson. So he's Earl of Wessex. Now, I've put quite a lot of information on the screen. You don't have to memorize it. Some of it I've just put as context. But we need an understanding he's the most powerful man in England at the time. Remember when we looked at the power of the king and Edward the Confessor and how much he's reliant on the Godwinsons? So English sources say Edward the Confessor granted the kingdom to Harold. Harold was asked by Edward to protect his wife and all the kingdom. Does protect also mean rule, though? Is that a bit of a leap? The promise by Edward to Harold Godwinson about being a chosen successor wasn't done in public anyway. So naming a successor should be a big deal. You do it in public, so there's no doubt. However, in the Bear Tapestry, King Edward seems to be reaching out his hand to Harold Godwinson, which is a really incredible scene to be included because it's made by the Normans. And that just really lends credibility to the fact that it did actually happen. Because why would the Normans have put it in otherwise? So Edward was married to Harold Godwinson's sister, so he's not a blood relation, but he's got that family connection. And probably what's more important, he's there. He's on the spot when Edward dies. He's Edward's right-hand man. Influence over the Witan. Don't forget the Witan are the earls. Well, almost all of them are Godwinsons. And he's married into Mercia, so he's brother-in-law to the earls. And he has proved himself. He is a great warrior, Harold Godwinson. So he is a great warrior. He's very intelligent. He's been ruling Wessex. He really is sort of tried and tested. They know he's going to do a good job. So they also, another reason why the Witan are going to like him, if he becomes king, they're going to keep all their land and power. That's not guaranteed if a foreign king took over. So a foreign king comes over, he brings fighters from his own country. If he wins, he's going to want to reward the people who fought with him from his own country. So maybe he'll get rid of the Saxon earls and replace them. And that isn't a sort of I don't know what the word is. It's not an unrealistic expectation. So we're going to see much later when William comes over from Normandy and takes over as king, very quickly he gets rid of all the Saxon earls and replaces them with Normans. So the fact that this happens so quickly, so same day as Edward's funeral, it's all very rushed, suggests that they are aware that not everyone is okay with Harold taking the crown. So Harold Godwinson, lot going for him as a contender. We can see why the Witan end up choosing him. There are others though. So Harold Hardrada, this guy is great. 7 foot tall Viking, best fighter in Europe, some say. He is the king of Norway, and he's become the king of Norway by taking it in battle. He was not born to the throne, he takes it by force. He's used to invading the north of England, enormous military experience, and really power hungry. Most people conquering Norway, becoming king of Norway would be enough. Harald Hardrada is not done yet. So why stop at conquering Norway when you can conquer England as well? Really good support, 15,000 warriors. So sometimes the numbers can be a bit misleading because you look, say, at the Battle of Hastings, there was around 7,000 Saxons. But we're going to see they're not great soldiers. They're not well trained. Harold Hardrada has 15,000 Viking warriors. Viking warriors trained from an incredibly young age. These are skilled, experienced, trained. They are amazing warriors. 15,000 of those, 300 longships. So it's not actually a surname, Hardrada, it's a nickname. It means stern ruler. So when the Vikings say you're strict, you know you're strict. And he's got in his ear our old friend Tostig Godwinson. So Tostig Godwinson has teamed up with him. He's encouraging to invade England. So Tostig, perhaps understandably, is like my brother kicked me out the country. Now you go and fight him. Also, remember, Tostig knows Harold Godwinson really well. He knows England really well. He's a great ally to have. His claim, Harold Hardrada, is so weak. It's that his grandfather was promised the throne by someone else's grandfather a long time ago. It was very weak, but actually it didn't matter because Hardrada is always going to try and take it by force. So Danelaw, remember that area that still has Viking ancestry, still strong in parts of England, and there had been Viking kings before. So Edward the Confessor, remember, grows up in Normandy because the Vikings had taken over. So Hardrada, great candidate. Then we have William, Duke of Normandy. So a small region in France. Edward grows up there. Edward's mother was Emma of Normandy. So he spent, Edward the Confessor, 20 years in Normandy in exile. He grew up with William, Duke of Normandy's father. They were first cousins, they grew up together, they were best friends, they were like brothers. So it isn't a massive stretch of the imagination that when Edward the Confessor died, he wanted his best friend's son, William, Duke of Normandy, to come after him. So William, like Harold, amazing fighter, strong defender of his land, really good at ruling. Okay, it's not a kingdom, it's a dukedom. But his ancestors built up power by taking over other lands. So he claimed Edward agreed in 1051 he could be King of England, might well have happened. Edward does seem to have promised the throne to quite a few people, possibly in the thought that when it all kicked off, he'd be dead and he wouldn't be around to see the mess. So I put the next bullet point there. Edward actually quarrels with the Godwinsons, so he might have sought out new friends, new allies. The Norman sources, remember, say that Harold Godwinson goes to Normandy to offer William the throne. No recording from the Saxons. The Saxons say it's hostages. So Harold Godwinson might have made this oath to William as he was captured by one of William's enemies. Remember we did that when we looked at the embassy? So he might actually have sworn the oath, but kind of under duress. He needed William's protection. Now, the bottom one, really important, or the bottom few, and people tend to overlook this. William had the support of the Pope, and people overlook it because the Catholic Church isn't powerful in this country in any way as it was in 1066. But this was huge. So the Pope, so God's representative on earth, comes out and says, Harold Godwinson isn't the rightful king. If you go and you back William in the Battle of Hastings, God will be on your side. And the Pope even gives William a special flag to wave at the Battle of Hastings to show that he has the support of the Pope. So Harold Godwinson, from the moment he becomes king, starts to prepare for an invasion from Normandy. So he absolutely knows William is coming. And the last one, not to be forgotten, Edgar Atheling, King Edward's only male relative, great nephew to King Edward. Atheling just means prince. There are lots of them around, so it means throne worthy, someone who might be king. No guarantee that you're going to be king. And Edward actually changes his mind about Edgar being named successor, possibly because he's so young when he dies. So Edgar's only 14 and had no military leadership. More on that in a minute. Edgar's actually raised in Hungary, and this is one of the things about Saxon society. Edgar is seen as a good old English prince, but he's born in Hungary, he's raised in Hungary, he speaks Hungarian, he has Hungarian customs, never set foot in England before this. And yet, because his blood is Saxon, he's seen as a good old Saxon prince in a way that William isn't. So no supporters in England, they don't know them. This is where you're going to show off to the examiners. Lots of people just discount him and go, he's only 14, he's too young. The Saxons aren't stupid. They get that 14-year-olds grow up, and actually, in 4 years' time, he's going to be 18, Saxon equivalent of manhood. So you wouldn't go for a 14-year-old while you've got grown men, great fighters like Harold Godwinson kicking around. But in a little while, once the Battle of Hastings happens and Harold Godwinson dies, Edgar Atheling's actually going to be King of England. The Witan are going to choose him, and he's going to be king for a few weeks before William takes over. So if you did the Battle of Hastings in Key Stage 3, we tend to gloss over that bit. We go Battle of Hastings, William the Conqueror becomes king. But worth noting that given the choice between Edgar and William, the Witan choose Edgar. So the fact that he's only 14 isn't a total deal breaker. But we're going to look at that next lesson where we start to look at the battles. So we've got Harold Godwinson as our king. He has a sneaky feeling William of Normandy is going to be causing him trouble. He's no idea that the actual trouble, first of all, is going to come from the Vikings.